Joining me now, Alan Kashkadori, former federal prosecutor and senior writer for Politico magazine, and Anthony Coley, MSNBC Justice and Legal Affairs analyst, former director of the Office of Public Affairs at the Justice Department, and senior advisor to Attorney General Merrick Garland. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Saturday show. Okay, so I had the pink highlighter in my hand when we came out of the break because I was trying to help me make sense of something. Now, Donald Trump went to the Supreme Court to get the court to prevent his sentencing yesterday. The Supreme Court came back 5-4 and said, no. And so he was sentenced. But now, can he go back to the Supreme Court and get them to overturn the conviction?
He can eventually attempt to do that. The effort to go to the Supreme Court was just about the timing of the sentencing and whether he could stop it. He still has an appeal from the conviction itself, meaning, whether it was valid, whether there was any improprieties, whether some evidence should have been excluded, particularly surrounding what he claims were immunized conduct. That would go through the New York State court system first, but he may then attempt to take it to the Supreme Court if he doesn't get the result, which he wants, which is obviously to throw it out.
And given how the court ruled in terms of his sentencing, do you think the court will be 5-4 again with Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett siding with the liberals?
I don't know. Actually, I read the tea leaves a little differently. What we saw last week was 4 justices who've had no briefing on what happened at that trial, who are already prepared, I think, to toss the conviction out. So the question is whether Roberts and Barrett could be brought along, and that's an open question.
So I'm cynical here. I think the only reason they let this whole sentencing go forward is because Judge Juan Marchand signaled early on that he was not going to incarcerate Donald Trump. That's why I think they let this go forward. And I do think at the end of the day, once this reaches the court again, that I just cannot imagine that conservatives are going to let this conviction stand. I think they're going to overturn it.
I think it's quite likely, and I totally agree with Anthony's assessment. I think if there had been any sense that he might be in some actual danger on Friday of some sort of punishment, they would have killed it off. I mean, I think they were fine to let him have a bad press day, but anything more than that, they seem very eager to prevent from happening.
Yeah. Okay. Can we just talk about what to me looks like a conflict, and that is Justice Samuel Alito talking to the president-elect on the phone. They say about some sort of job thing for someone that the justice knows, and that they didn't talk about the case. They didn't talk about the case at all. I'm sorry. I don't know. But am I wrong? Am I being overly? I don't even know the right word. Am I reading too much into this phone call, or is that normal?
So listen, there is the conflict of interest, and then there's the appearance of the conflict of interest. And in either one of those situations, justices should recuse. That's what should happen. The reality here is that Samuel Alito, there is no enforcement mechanism in this Supreme Court. So even if they do something wrong or look like they do something wrong, there is no accountability here. That's the real problem. He shouldn't have done it, and we certainly should not take Donald Trump's words or Samuel Alito's words that they didn't talk about anything before the court, right? It's just, it doesn't pass the smell test.
Is there even a separation between the judicial branch and the executive branch anymore?
Right. I mean, I think I agree. This was improper. I mean, Trump is a litigant before this court. He knew that. And instead, he's on the phone basically asking the president for a favor. Right? Which is to hire his former clerk.
And this is not for a cabinet position. This is a sub-cabinet position for somebody who's already served in Trump's administration at the Justice Department. This guy's name is Will Levy. Everybody knows in this town knows who Levy is. It doesn't look right. I smell a rat.
I will say he is in dire need of a good reference for the position that he's up for. You were right that he had that position.
Who is this man? You just can't drop a name and say
he was the chief of staff to Bill Barr during the first Trump administration. And now he's up for general counsel for Department of Defense, if I remember correctly. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. So I, too, would be fishing for every possible reference I could get.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say that's not him. That's the other guy. Let's talk about Jack Smith's resignation. I was a little confused earlier because I thought there were 2 separate reports, but it's one big report, but 2 volumes, one on the January 6th investigation, the other on the classified documents case. We are waiting, well, actually, as early as tomorrow, if the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals does what it does, it's the January 6th report that we could see tomorrow. What exactly might we see?
Right. So if I can take 30 seconds to just step back and about how we got here, because Jack Smith, we just learned that he resigned, right? I was at DOJ when Garland appointed Smith to the position. He did, this is November 2022, Jonathan. He did this just days after Trump announced that he was going to run for president. And he did this to reassure the public that whatever prosecutorial decision was appropriate, that it was indisputably determined by facts and law, not politics. So fast forward to where we are right now. Jack Smith did his job. Facts and law guided his decision. The reality is that he ran into raw politics every step of the way. And I'm talking about raw politics from conservatives close to Donald Trump, including Vice President Pence, God bless him, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who refused to voluntarily comply when asked to appear before a federal grand jury. That took months and months and months of delay. But it was ultimately conservatives on this U.S. Supreme Court. That's why Donald Trump is escaping criminal accountability here. In terms of this report itself, I think it's going to come out, but, you know, who knows with these courts? It's important for the historical record that it comes out. Absolutely. But it's also important to rebut this narrative that DOJ was dragging its feet on investigating Donald Trump early on. We know there's recent reporting that disputes that, but it's also important to rebut the false narrative that this prosecution was political or politicized. Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone is the only one responsible for being prosecuted by this Justice Department.
Ankush, your view on this, especially when Anthony says, you know, people saying that DOJ dragged its feet on this.
Yeah, well, look, respectfully, we have a difference of opinion on this. I have a different perspective. And there was reporting from another network just this week that effectively corroborated the conclusions of the New York Times and the Washington Post that a year to 2 years was effectively wasted.
You can't believe everything you read, brother.
Look, I've been hearing rebuttals like that for years now from representatives of the department. They always sound like that. Where are the facts?
No, so let me tell you.
Where are the facts?
So let me tell you.
What were they doing during this period in 2021 when people like me and many other people were begging them to take notice of an extraordinary attempt to remain in power by President Trump?
And so here we have someone who was there at the time.
Let me tell you something. When I ran the Office of Public Affairs at the Justice Department, if somebody came into my office, a reporter, and said, Anthony, we're going to report on XYZ about a grand jury proceeding, I couldn't even confirm the mere existence of a grand jury proceeding, much less who appeared in front of it. So what happens is that a narrative gets set in, and people don't always know what the truth is. And so that's why it's important for this final report to come out. And my hope is that in this report, it has a conclusive timeline of how aggressively this Justice Department was investigating Trump and those around him from the very beginning. That should be the final word.
I think that would be very useful. But just a narrative, I understand it's a narrative. It's a narrative that's been advanced by thorough investigative reporting by some of the nation's best investigative reporters and legal reporters at CNN, at the New York Times, and the Washington Post. And by the way, now that this administration is over, I'm quite confident we're going to be hearing more about what happened during that period. I know that there are reporters in the field on this, including writing books. I do not think it is going to reflect well on the department's conduct during 2021 and 2022, but we shall see.
Well, this fight is going to continue, because that report's going to come out.
Right.
And then these reports that, Ankush, you say, the reporting will come out, these books will come out, and then we'll have you back. You can slug it out.
I love it.
Slug it out again. Ankush Khardori, Anthony Coley, thank you both very much for coming back to the Saturday Show. And